Welcome to the fifth broadcast of the North American National Party Chapter 15 video series. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We have uh, issues in our country that I don't think people understand. So with that, we will get started. The first thing that I want to discuss with you is what has happened since 1976 that nobody has paid attention to. So we will get started with this thing. I'll show you a couple things on this. This is the Declaration of Interdependence. When in the course of history the threat of extinction confronts mankind, it is necessary for the people of the United States to declare their interdependence with people of all nations and to embrace those principles and build those institutions which will enable mankind to survive and civilization to flourish. Sounds all good, but read the next line. 2 centuries ago, our forefathers brought forth a new nation, which they didn't. They brought forth a corporation. That's been proven. Now we must join with others to bring forth a what? A new world order. So, people, with that, you need to understand that the United States does not have your best interest at heart because it's a corporation. It's not a nation. It never will be a nation. So they've basically, by military occupation, have control of the United States of America, which is the country that I live in. And I know it's kind of confusing, but if you scroll down, you'll see who all is involved in this thing. And these are, members of a Congress that really was never ratified. And that was discussed in the second broadcast of this show, or you can go to the T Row shows and find it there as well. But see all this? These are New World Order agents, folks. These are traitors to the country. And here's the advisory committee. I mean, you can see Harvard University. There's a shock. U.S. Senator and former mayor of Philadelphia. I mean, you can just find this PDF on your own and actually go through it, and you'll see that the United Nations, that's a shocker, that everything that you serve is not what you thought you were serving in life. And look here, the American Bar Association section of international law, which they don't go by the law of nations necessarily unless it benefits them. International Chamber of Commerce, the Girl Scouts International Congress, the Food and Agriculture Organization. These are all private membership associations. International Justice Court of Justice, World Court, that's the Hague. Oh, looky here. This is what's in control of the Internal Revenue Service, the International Monetary Fund. And how I know that is they accept our national currency, the continental dollar, for use of the United States Postal Service. So this is not what you World Health Organization. There's a shocker. So this is the New World Order agenda, folks. And this is something else that I found interesting. Anytime that you break chain of title, the Articles of Confederation were ratified in 1781. So from the period of 1776 till the final adoption of the U.S. Constitution in 1789. So basically, what that is saying is that they knew that they were in a sovereign country under the Articles of Confederation, but they had to bust that union up in order to get away with what they've gotten away with. And now look at us today. What a mess we are in. So this is why things are so messed up and people don't understand. In last program, I showed about the gold fringe flag. There's no law, no constitution, no nation even recognizes that gold fringe around the flag. So now that you've seen this, and I don't normally get into scripturally deep subjects, but I'm going to show you. It's in Matthew 6:24 in every version of the Bible, but those are just versions of the Bible. What I'm about to show you is the Paleo-Hebrew translation of the scriptures, because we know King James, if you do your homework, and you can go back and look at this yourself, he was a Freemason. So right here is what I want to show you. And this is where the New World Order is wrong. All right, right there. Okay, no one is able to serve two masters. He either shall hate the one and love the other, or else he shall cleave to the one and despise the other. You are not able to serve Elohim and Mammon. Because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of the heaven, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather in storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Are you not worth more than they? So the New World Order basically is taking power of attorney for our Father in heaven. And you saw that the International Monetary Fund is part of it. And like I said, the Internal Revenue Service funnels money to them, and they're part of that New World Order. But that's not really the biggest thing that I want to show you here. The next thing I want to show you is the worldly religions. And this is going to shock even a lot of people that study this Islamic Muslim religion. So this is the World Economic Forum. Now, is this not a worldly religion? Because they are registering their religion with the New World Order. It's very clear. So I just wanted to show you that this isn't about religion, it's about money. I mean, these are corporations. So, folks, you've been deceived and you don't know why or how to fix it, but there is a way. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is about 15 minutes of this video. And this guy studied the Muslim religion religiously. And I'll scroll down to give the guy credit. So, I'm just sharing this. There it is, the Mecca mystery, or Muslims praying in the wrong direction. And it says a whole lot more, but I don't have time to go through this whole video. That's why if you really wanted to watch it, there is the way that you can see it. Now, this guy here is a devout supporter of the Arab world, but that's not my concern really. But what he has to say here is of concern, because this should make everybody question their religion.
But this is not the only evidence we have. During the excavations, the archaeologists uncovered over 400 catapult stones. These stones are buried in about the right place at exactly the right time. This is an extremely strong indication that the battle took place here and that the first original Kaaba was close to this location.
So, Islam was divided between the traditionalists and the reformers. The traditionalists prayed towards Petra in Jordan, and the reformers prayed towards Mecca in Saudi Arabia, and others deliberately choosing a middle path.
Okay, chain of title is everything. The scriptures go all the way back to Genesis, to the beginning of time, of the earth. So you've got three different factions here that are all praying in different directions. And the Quran, well, they'll explain it. It's been revised so many times that nobody knows what really the origin of the religion is. So that should tell you something right there.
How were they ever going to solve this dilemma? Petra, the city of weeping, suffered a fatal calamity. Massive earthquakes shook the Petra region, destroying buildings, temples, and houses. The damage was so bad that the city was never rebuilt again.
The evidence for that first Kaaba is gone now. The catapult stones destroyed much of it. Ibn Zubair destroyed the rest. In 713, an earthquake destroyed the dam that diverts the water around Petra, so every year floodwaters washed away whatever evidence was left.
So, with the memory of Petra fading from view, the chroniclers of Islamic history, writing some 150 years later, would never mention it by name. In time, the memories of these two locations became merged into one, that of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. From now on, all Qiblas would point here. It wasn't until modern archaeological tools, satellite photos, and the internet allowed the networking of historians, academics, and scholars around the world to start piecing together a different picture.
هذا الأمر غريب، يعني أول مرة نسمع فيه، يعني شلون المسلمين تبيهم يصدقون في هذا الشيء المكتوب، يعني غريبة، ليش ما مذكور في الكتب الإسلامية ولا مذكور في كتب التاريخ؟ شلون نسوا ولا يعني يا ترى هل تناسوا ولا نسوا هذا الأمر؟ شلون ما ذكروه؟ شيء غريب.
In order to understand the events that influenced the writing of Islamic history, we need to recognize several things. First, it is my belief there was a literary vacuum in the early Islamic empire, created by zealous Muslims who destroyed books and manuscripts, erased inscriptions, burned libraries, and destroyed all literature except the Quran, which was mostly bits and pieces of what people remembered of the revelations that Muhammad gave. This destruction of written material by the Islamic forces has been well documented. One piece of evidence is a letter from 640 AD from the Caliph to General Amru, the leader of the Muslim armies in Egypt, who asked the Caliph what should he do with the thousands of manuscripts he found in warehouses in Alexandria. The Caliph's answer has been recorded and known for centuries.
As for the books you mention, here is my reply. If their content is in accordance with the revelations of Allah, we may do without them. For in that case, the revelations of Allah more than suffice. If, on the other hand, they contain matter not in accordance with the revelations of Allah, there can be no need to preserve them. Proceed then and destroy them.
Why would you destroy your own history unless you were trying to hide something? That should tell people right there that follow the Muslim religion that it's a corporation. It's about money. It's not really about a religion. It's very clear.
The Muslim writer Ibn al-Kifti tells us that the books were distributed to the public baths of Alexandria, where they were used to feed the stoves, which kept the baths comfortably warm.
They say it took 6 months to burn all that mass of material.
Eutychius, the Patriarch of Constantinople, recorded that there were 4,000 baths that received books from the Alexandrian library.
This burning of books, however, did not start in Egypt, but 4 years earlier in Persia. Caliph Umar's army met with the Persian armies in the Battle of Qadisiyah in the year 636 AD. In early January 637, the Muslim advance guard reached the outskirts of Ctesiphon and laid siege to the city for 2 months. Eventually, the city fell and the Muslims occupied it. During the fighting, the palaces and the library at Ctesiphon were deliberately burned. In the end, the only book that managed to survive in Arabia was the glorious Quran.
When it comes to the history of the Quran, historians have struggled. It seems that most of the Quran was retained in an oral fashion rather than written form. While the Arabs were great memorizers and had the ability to retain the entirety of the Quran, the retention of materials in an oral tradition suffers from several difficulties. First, the accuracy of the memories of the individuals involved must be perfect. In the case of the Quran, arguments arose over the various verses, how they should be rendered, and if they should or should not be included in the whole. Second, the problem of transferring knowledge from the learned to the novice is often a difficult step. In the case of the Quran, most of the men who memorized the sayings of Muhammad were also warriors. As is often the case, warriors die in battle, and their knowledge of the Quran perished with them. This is amply illustrated in the Battle of Yamama, when an estimated 450 men who had memorized the Quran were killed.
Hudayfa bin al-Yaman came to Uthman at the time when the people of Damascus and the people of Iraq were waging war to conquer Armenia and Azerbaijan. Hudayfa was afraid because the people of Damascus and Iraq had differences in the recitation of the Quran. So he said to Uthman, "O chief of the believers, save this nation before they differ about the revelations." So Uthman sent a message to Hafsa saying, "Send us your manuscript of the Quran so that we may compile the Quranic materials into perfect copies and return the manuscript to you." Hafsa sent it. Then a group of men sat down to create a new copy of the Quran. Uthman said to the three Quraysh men, "In case you disagree, write it in the dialect of Quraysh, for the Quran was revealed in their tongue."
When several copies were written, Uthman returned the original manuscript to Hafsa. Uthman then sends every Muslim province one copy of what's been written, and he orders that all of the Quranic material, whether written in fragmentary manuscripts or even in whole copies, that they all be burned.
And so the burning continued. This time, even Quranic materials were burnt. But it did not stop the arguing about what should or should not be included in the Quran. When the new Qurans arrived in various provinces, people argued against them.
Sa'id bin Thabit said, "A verse from Surah Al-Ahzab was missed when we copied the Quran, and I used to hear Allah's apostle reciting it. So we searched for it and found it with Huzayma bin Thabit al-Ansari."
These 5 or 6 copies were now the only Qurans in the entire Muslim empire. Uthman's order to burn all other Quranic material tried to wipe out all Qurans everywhere, except the few that were held by the provincial governors.
In effect, all non-Muslim books were destroyed, and then the Muslims destroyed all of their own books and writings, except for 5 or 6 copies. Remember, the Islamic Empire at this time stretched from the Atlantic Ocean through the Middle East all the way to Afghanistan, and only 5 or 6 copies of the Quran existed in all those millions of square kilometers. This is what I refer to when I speak of a literary vacuum. Much later, once the Abbasids took control of the Islamic Empire, they recognized this literary vacuum and they set out to correct it. The problem was, they were interested in producing an Abbasid version of Islamic history. So all of the materials produced under the Abbasid control reflected the politically correct version of Abbasid history.
Kind of like all the Bibles of today. You have the King James Version, the New International Version. Those are all versions of the Bible. That's not the actual scriptures that were translated. That was somebody's opinion of what was in these scriptures. So that is very clear. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
These histories and hadiths about the previous 250 or more years were collected, copied, and distributed. Those books that were written earlier were either destroyed or edited by later writers who thought they found errors in them.
Under Abbasid rule, massive religious, scientific, and academic projects were undertaken. The Abbasid rulers encouraged scholarly development that would not only present the early years of Islam in a good light, but would also confirm their own right to ruling the empire.
During this period of time, we find the great Islamic historians writing their treatise on Islamic history. And they also edit the earlier accounts. For example, we don't have Ibn Ishaq's original biography of Muhammad, as Ibn Hisham, under the Abbasids, corrected what he called grievous errors in the original account.
After the editing of Ibn Hisham, the rest of the great Islamic historians began to write their histories, and they present us with an Islamic history that was tailored to suit the religious and political worldview of the Abbasids of their day. Is it possible that Muslims today are victims of an Abbasid cover-up? Did the Abbasids purposely turn Muslims away from praying towards the forbidden gathering place in Petra, as the Quran commands, and make them pray towards the Black Rock, now residing in Mecca? Are Muslims still being misled by Abbasid propaganda? I believe the stage was set when early Muslim leaders gathered together the various scraps of the Quran. The problem wasn't the collection. It was the destruction of anything that opposed their view.
There is a great divide here between Western thought and Muslim thought. In Western thought, the later manuscripts are less reliable, as they are copies of copies. We need to go back to earlier source material, as it's more accurate. Muslims, on the other hand, think earlier manuscripts are less reliable, and later manuscripts replace earlier manuscripts.
And there's a reason for
Even
that.
in the Quran, later revelations replace or abrogate earlier revelations. Once you allow the concept of abrogation, you open yourself up to accepting all kinds of changes.
Exactly.
If the Abbasids tampered with history, did they go so far as tampering with the text of the Quran? For instance, how did the name Mecca get into Surah 48? Abu Bakr, the successor of Muhammad, made the first compilation of Quranic material. Uthman, who followed him, used that collection and then added to it. The historians tell us that even after Uthman had compiled his Quran, people remembered still more verses that Muhammad had revealed. Every time a new Quran came out, it was touted as the most complete Quran. The previous ones were okay, but the newer ones were more complete, with more revelations in them. Did the Abbasids bring out an even more complete Quran that contained mention of Mecca? Today we have many of the Abbasid Kufi Qurans in museums from Istanbul to Samarkand. These Qurans use the Kufic script invented in the city of Kufa. But what about earlier Qurans written in other scripts? I have searched through many of the early Quranic parchments written in pre-Kufic script. It should come as no surprise that none of the pre-Kufic material includes verses about the changing of the Qibla or the city of Mecca.
There you have it.
Historians have
All
challenged me
falsehood.
that I'm trying to rewrite all of Islamic history. I assure you I'm not trying to do this. I'm only suggesting one small change. Long ago, the holy city of Islam was referred to as Becca. I believe that name was used for the city of Petra after repeated earthquakes killed many people. After Ibn Zubair moved the Black Stone to Mecca, scribes had only to make one small change to Islamic writing. In Arabic, Becca is written like this. It's very easy to change the ba to a mim. Watch again. That's all it took. It is virtually undetectable to later readers. Did the Abbasid scribes correct an earlier reference to Becca in the Quran and make it into Mecca? I believe that all of the evidence points to Petra as being the ancient city of Becca, the founding place of Islam. All of the mosques of the first century of Islam point to the forbidden gathering place in Petra, and all of the descriptions fit Petra, not Mecca. Muslims are instructed in the Quran to pray towards the forbidden gathering place. The Quran says nothing about the Black Rock.
It is clear that although Dan Gibson's research is rooted in Islamic history, and he has a great affection for the Arabic world, his theories will be challenging to Muslims. As faiths around the globe come under increasing scrutiny to prove the veracity of their origins, all religions need to consider serious research they may find difficult. Islam needs to ask if it is possible that over 1 billion people have been misled by Abbasid propaganda regarding how and where their religion began. And, if true, what implications does this have for the average Muslim today?
Okay, let me show you what this is really about. This guy tells you exactly what they're going to do. So pay attention. This is very important. In 50 years, we will enslave you. This is just a short that I found on YouTube.
I've never seen a white
Wrong one.
male.
Let's go back.
When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation. In return, when enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims protect you. Subhanallah, for this little money? Yes. And you enjoy sitting in your homes and in your country and live your life normally. But the ruling is for Sharia. So you do not open nightclubs, you do not fornicate. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take because you refuse. I give you two good options in the coming 40, 50 years when the Muslims become strong, as they're supposed to be. When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do we do?
Very important. They're out to conquer countries, and they've done a very good job. Sadiq Khan, he's the mayor of London, and I'll show you something on that here in a minute. And then people, you know, they don't want Islam in their country. This is exactly what happened. They're out to enslave you. This isn't about religion. This is about a military takeover. Okay, so you've seen those. Now in 2001, remember the Twin Towers that in Manhattan that got destroyed, which they blamed Al Qaeda. But here's the problem: they're all Muslims. Looky here. Listen to. I'm not going to play very much of this, but I want you to understand that he is a Muslim himself. So what they're basically saying is that the United States was conquered by Islam, and this was in 2001 when that happened. And this joker became the president of the corporation, the CEO, in 2008. So here you go. Listen to him.
Everyone celebrating Nowruz across the United States and in countries around the world. Nowruz Mubarak. For thousands of years, this has been a time to gather with family and friends and welcome a new spring and a new year. Last week, my wife Michelle helped mark Nowruz here at the White House. It was a celebration of the vibrant cultures, food, music, and friendship of our many diaspora communities who make extraordinary contributions every day here in the United States. We even created our own Haftzin, representing our hopes for the new year. This year, that includes our hopes for progress between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the international community, including the United States. So I want to take this opportunity once again to speak directly to the people and leaders of Iran. As you gather around the Nowruz table, from Tehran to Shiraz to Tabriz, from the coasts of the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf, you're giving thanks for your blessings and looking ahead to the future. This year, we have the best opportunity in decades to pursue a different future between our countries. Just over a year ago, we reached an initial understanding regarding Iran's nuclear program, and both sides have kept our commitments. Iran has halted progress on its nuclear program and even rolled it back in some areas. The international community, including the United States, has provided Iran with some relief from sanctions. Now our diplomats and our scientists are engaged in negotiations in the hopes of finding a comprehensive solution that resolves the world's concerns with Iran.
We don't need to worry about what the world's concerns are, Mr. Obama, or if that's even your real name. We know you're a Muslim. We know that you're in control quietly in the United States. You made that perfectly clear. So the United States of America is different from the United States federal corporation. And this is an objection that was posted in the American Herald newspaper, June 12th, 2021. America was never ceded to Allah or political Islam. And you can read this whole thing if you would like. I have a little bit more to show you. Actually, there's quite a bit to show you. It may run into another episode even after this. But there's the American Herald newspaper. You can go to the June 12th edition. On the right-hand side, as you scroll down, you can go to the month and the year and look it up for yourself. So there was an objection made by the National Assembly. And Islam has declared war against the West, including but not limited to North America. And I'll show you what I mean here. And like I said, these are all very good newspapers. This is the map that reveals the jihad locations today within the country. And I just had this kind of, I was looking at it earlier, so I had it kind of enlarged. But you notice how many jihad training camps and Muslims there are. Now, let me show you something else real quick. This was when they started immigrating into our country, thanks to the United States Federal Corporation. You can see where it started from in 1880. So it's no surprise how much it has grown. And people, you're being deceived. It is a world religion that has the intention of taking over the country with military occupation. They've already proved that. So with that, let's go to the Khan family history, because this is kind of where my investigation started. See, Muslim from Khan, an English spelling of the status, means military ruler, sovereign. So they're wanting to be the sovereign of your country. I know that doesn't set well with many people, and it shouldn't. But that's just the way it is. So you can see how much it's really grown. It's starting to really spread out into a bad thing. So people, we need to fix this. This is not something that is going to go away on its own. This is something that the people have to address. And like I told you, you have to exile yourself from your current status as an inhabitant / taxpayer, and then you will have the ability to be on equal footing with them. But right now, they've got you under a barrel, basically. Let's see if I can do this one more time here. There it goes. Okay. This is directly aimed toward Eric Holcomb and his gangster buddies up there in Indianapolis. This is regarding the Al Salam Foundation. Madison, or County of Madison, pay attention. This is an objection to all pursuits of Islam, and you need to cease and desist the Muslim mosques everywhere, including the one in Plainfield, Indiana. I know the last broadcast I said Plainfield, Illinois, but I was incorrect there. But this is, Islam has been outlawed within the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America, which is not the U.S. federal corporation that everybody thinks is their country. The United States of America has since objected to any form of Sharia law within the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America or any one of these United States. And you can follow that. Now, the thing about the Al Salam Foundation is its statement on their website is directly the opposite of what is in the Quran, and I'll show that to you in a minute. It says Al Salam Foundation is an Islamic nonprofit organization established in 2012 for the purpose to undertake and engage in religious, charitable, educational, and cultural activities. Al Salam Foundation also promotes friendly relations between Muslims and peoples of other faith to foster a Muslim community based on Islamic principles of universal brotherhood, equality, and tolerance. Now that sounds good, but what they're really saying is they're going to take over whatever area that they live in, whatever community that they've come in. Now here's the Quran. This is how they are really thinking. I will throw terror into the hearts of the mushrikun or whatever, unbelievers, idolaters, all non-Muslims, smite you above your necks, behead them, and smite all their fingertips off. This is because they contend against Allah and his messenger Muhammad. They don't even have a right chain of title. If any contend against Allah and his messenger, Allah is strict in his punishment. Now, how is that fostering relations with people of other faiths? That is a straight military takeover. So I just wanted to let you know that, there was an objection made, Eric, get the Muslim mosques shut down and make them leave, because we didn't have this problem until the United States Federal Corporation came in and took over the country. So with that being said, we need to clean this up, people. And if your church files as a 501c3 with the Internal Revenue Trust, remember, they're part of the New World Order. So you might really want to consider the doctrine that you're really following. If anybody would like a copy of these scriptures, you may contact me at 618-499-4192 or on the North American National Party website. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you next week. Thank you.